and welcome back to Scottish and Scared. I'm your host Stephanie, here to tell you all the weird and wonderful things about my wee country Scotland. If you would like to get in touch with us, you can send us an email at scottishandscared@gmail.com, follow us on Instagram at scottishandscaredpod, or head over to our website scottishandscared.com for all of our links and anything else that you may need. If you wouldn't mind, please rate, review and comment wherever you may be listening. It does help us out a lot. Now, on to the show. Hello my lovely people, I hope we are all well on this crisp winter morning. Yes, autumn is over, winter is in full swing. I think on November 1st the Christmas music started playing everywhere and Learmonth began. But I hope you all had a lovely Halloween and spooky season. I am not the biggest fan of Christmas, I just don't know why. The smells, the flavours, i.e. gingerbread, all that kind of jazz, not my thing. The smells like that, the spiced apple, just no, and the music is just, oh. But anyway, yeah, I hope you all had a lovely Halloween and you all had a lovely spooky season and you got up to loads of spooky autumnal things. And before I get into the more personal side of things and what I've been up to, just some show stuff that I would like to go through. So I am going to be sticking to the 2 episodes a week. One Scottish based and the other Cursed Objects. I'm going to continue with the Cursed Objects series for a few more weeks now. There's loads that I still want to cover, but once that is done, I would like to move on to another series. I would like you all to get in touch and let me know what you would like me to cover. I have a few ideas of my own. I was thinking maybe folk tales about the devil from around the world. There are some good ones and they are very light-hearted. I will not be talking about possession or sinister stories. More along the lines of folk tales, cautionary tales. So yeah, please get in touch and let me know if that's something that you're interested in. Or you can give me some of your own ideas. Now on to me, myself and I. Where have I been and what has been going on? So much has happened this year to this point. It has been a rollercoaster of emotions and events, and I'm just going to let you all into that a wee bit. The biggest thing to happen for me this year was that my son turned 1. I cannot believe it's been a year since he was born. It feels like he's been here my entire life in the best way possible. I've had a lot of mixed emotions about having children. It's been something I've really wanted, and it's also something that I never thought would happen for me. So to have a 1-year-old with someone that I love dearly is the best thing that's ever happened to me. He had a blast. The theme was Halloween. No, I am not projecting my obsessions onto my child. He genuinely loves ghosts, pumpkins, skeletons, all the spooky stuff. His favourite stuffies are his ghost and his bat. So yeah, he is definitely my son. And I do think a part of him loving all this stuff so much is because my house is decorated like Halloween the entire year. So he's been seeing all this stuff from the day he was born. But yes, he very much loves it just as much as his mum. Most of my time has been consumed with some work that I've been doing with the Marie Curie. Just to clarify, they are a charity who provide end-of-life and palliative care to people and families who need it. As many of you know, my mum passed away last year from cancer at the Marie Curie Hospice here in Glasgow. A few months after that, they contacted me and asked if I wanted to be a storyteller for them. And it's kind of just snowballed from there. I've been featured in a few other campaigns, I've been on their social media, and I've also been in some of the newspapers here in Scotland. And a few months ago now, I was in Edinburgh speaking at the launch of their new manifesto. So they are currently campaigning to have end-of-life and palliative care here in Scotland accessible to every person who needs it, which it currently isn't. My involvement has been going on for about 6 months now, and it has been quite heavy. I've had to talk about something that's very painful over and over, and I am in no way complaining about it. It is for a good cause and hopefully I have made a difference, but it's been very emotionally draining. So I have taken a few months off just to recenter, kind of ground myself a wee bit. I was absolutely shitting myself for the speech in Edinburgh, but now that I've done it, I feel like a weight is off me and I'm back to doing me again. Also, I would like to just say that I totally understand that not everyone has had a positive experience with end-of-life care, and I totally respect that, but fortunately we did, and that is why I'm choosing to work with the Marie Curie. Just because I've had a few messages from people, some comments made that some people didn't have the best experience or they have some negative feelings towards Marie Curie specifically, which I totally respect, but we as a family did have a very positive experience, and it did totally change how we felt about losing our mum and the support that we've continued to have after it. I can't really fault it, so that is the reason why I'm choosing to speak about it and work with them. But yes, I totally respect that not everyone has the same experience. I also left my full-time job, and I have been there for about 14 years now. So that was also quite emotional and quite difficult, saying goodbye to people that have essentially become family to me. But it was time, and I am now fully committing myself to this. It might never go anywhere, but that's fine. The fact that I get so many messages from people to say that I've made them smile, or I've helped them get through gardening or studying, is reward enough for me. So all that to say that I am now fully committed to this show. This is my job, and I'm going to be here every week. If there is any reason why I can't, I'm going to be updating you in exactly why on social media. I know some people hate hearing about people go on and on about their personal lives, but most of the emails and messages that I get are people who kind of do want to know more. So if you don't like it, you know you can always skip forward. For those who do, I will keep you posted and updated. But yes, that is what I've been up to the past few months. I'm getting back into this. I've been on my laptop every spare minute of the day. I picked up a few books in Edinburgh, which I'm trying to get through as quickly as possible so I can bring some new stories to you. And I would like to kind of start exploring some other subject matter. I'm also trying to arrange a table at HorrorCon next year here in Glasgow. So hopefully all that goes to plan and you can come and see me there. And we can chat and we can put some faces to names. So yes, fingers crossed that all goes to plan. But without further ado, let's just get into today's episode. This story is a wee bit of a double whammy. It's been on the list for a while because it obviously comes out of Scotland, but it also involves a certain cursed object which is very on theme with our current series. So today we find ourselves once again in the capital, Edinburgh, to a very beautiful little street known as Learmonth Gardens. Now, it's a beautiful area. The houses are very Victorian, probably way above my price range, but absolutely stunning. There's loads of lovely gardens, greenery. It's a really beautiful area. On the 14th of August 1904, Sir Alexander Seton, 10th Baronet Seton, was born and taken home to Learmonth Gardens to live out his life in the family home. As far as I could tell, the Seton family were very wealthy, very affluential, and had a very positive reputation with the local community and beyond. But this would soon change, and the Seton name would be connected to something a wee bit darker. In March of 1927, Sir Alexander would marry a woman named Zeyla Daphne Sanderson, and in 1936 the couple would embark on a trip to Egypt, which is where their downfall begins. Now, there are a bunch of online sources about this story. There's newspaper clippings, blog posts, the usual stuff. But I did find that Sir Alexander had actually wrote his own account in his autobiography and unpublished manuscript titled The Transgressions of a Baronet. So I thought, why not just give you the story straight from the horse's mouth instead of me just rambling on. And this is Sir Alexander's account of what happened after they arrived in Egypt and the haunting events that followed. The Temple of Luxor is beyond my powers of description. It has to be seen to be believed, and many hours can be spent amongst the temples and beautiful buildings all around. The Valley of the Kings disappointed me, except for the tomb of Tutankhamun. There was really little to see. After 2 wonderful days, we wended our way back to Cairo, and this time to the Mina Hotel, on the edge of the desert and only a 10-minute walk from the Sphinx. Now, the Great Pyramid, of course, towers right over the hotel, and at night its shadow could be seen cast around everywhere. We did the usual sightseeing that all tourists have to do, including a ride on a rather unpleasant camel, and then retired for a bathe in the swimming pool and dinner on a table at the edge of the pool. In a mood of complete satisfaction caused by good eating, excellent brandy, and the cool of the evening, but most important of all, the receipt of a very welcome cheque from a Glasgow editor, to whom I had sent a description of my journey by destroyer. I had pleasure in receiving Abdul. He told me that new tombs had been found recently behind the pyramid, and although not of any great historical value, it might be as well if we saw the finishing stages of one of these tombs being examined, which was going on the next day. My brother could arrange, he said. It was arranged, therefore, that he would collect us the next morning after an early breakfast, and for an extra fee he would take us into the newly opened tomb, a thing that the Egyptians were very much against. I had a feeling in my bones that something was going to happen over this, and it was only with the greatest of difficulty that Zeyla cajoled me into going with her. I wish earnestly to God that we had not gone. I am not an Egyptologist, so I will not attempt to describe the tomb beyond the fact that it was pre-mummy era, we were informed, and had at one time been filled by the mud of the Nile, when it was known in history to have caused widespread damage. When this was, I do not know, but I believe it to be 4,000 or 5,000 years ago. We went down some roughly hewn rock steps, about 30 of them, and there, lying on a stone slab and uncovered, were the remains of a skeleton. Water and mud had removed most. You could see the skull quite clearly and the leg bones, but few ribs were left, although the spine was almost intact. With a feeling of awe, I looked around and could well imagine the placing of this poor body on the slab and the final sealing of the door at its feet. Our guide told us that it was the body of a high-class girl, but there was no question of her being a princess. I couldn't find out her age, nor could I find out her name. Time had erased that information, but that she was one of the countless hundreds that had been unearthed from behind the pyramids, there is no doubt. The antiquity of the bones could be seen by the fact that although as light as a feather, they would crumble very soon. As we left, I remember thinking to myself, how strange that one day someone may be looking at the bones and wondering what the devil the owner looked like. I said a small prayer and then made the others come up into the sunshine and life. Zeyla seemed fascinated by it and slipped back past us to have one more look. I was only too glad to have a smoke. The following sequence of events is exactly what happened in their correct order. Hundreds of daily papers and magazines have given their versions and verdicts, but I believe that I am the only person alive who can tell the story of the Egyptian bone as it happened. On the way back to the Mina house, it was suggested that we should call at the pyramid souvenir shop. To my surprise, Zeyla rejected the idea. That night after a bathe, Zeyla told me that she had got a wonderful souvenir in the shape of a bone that she had actually taken off of the skeleton we had seen that morning. She showed it to me, and to my eyes it looked like a digestive biscuit. Apart from it being slightly convex and the shape of a heart, I told her to put it away, and indeed never gave it another thought until we were back in Edinburgh, some weeks later after finishing our holiday in Egypt. We had asked some friends around for supper, and Zeyla produced this somewhat grotesque relic, much to the amusement of all. I produced a small case which had once contained a clock, and we put the bone on the dining room table. Just as our friends were leaving, there was the most almighty crash, and a huge piece of the roof parapet landed about 2 feet away from us. It could have killed anyone. Whether this can be connected with the bone or not is difficult to say, but it certainly scared us and was very hard to explain. A few nights later, after we had gone to bed, Nanny came running upstairs to say that she had heard someone moving around in the drawing room. I went downstairs, but there was nothing there. Just imagination and the rain outside, I told Nanny. That night in my sleep, I do remember hearing a crashing, but didn't think anything of it at the time. The following morning, however, Zeyla accused me of being careless the night before and of having upset the corner table. Sure enough, there the table lay, on its side, with the small glass case beside it and the bone on the floor. I apologised, thinking that I must have carelessly put the table unevenly against the wall, and the vibrations of the traffic must have shaken it over. One night, a few weeks later, when Nanny was out, we heard someone on the stairs, and not expecting her so early, Zeyla went outside to see if she was alright, but there was no one there. We didn't say anything to Nanny about it, but during the following nights, something kept waking us up at different times, and none of us could explain the noises. Young Alistair Black came by to stay for a few nights shortly after these strange occurrences. And one morning he calmly announced that he had seen a funny dressed person going upstairs. He assured me that he had gone to the lower lavatory the night before and he had seen this person. He didn't seem to be the slightest bit scared about it, however, so I didn't say anything more about it, but decided to sit up one night to see if I could see anything. We had some valuable snuff boxes in the drawing room, and I thought that someone might be trying to get at them. So having made quite sure that the drawing room windows were all locked, I locked the door, putting the key in my pocket. 4 hours I watched from the balcony outside our bedroom, feeling rather foolish doing so. Nothing happened, so I went to bed, only to be rudely awakened by a yell from Zeyla that someone was downstairs. Grabbing my revolver, I dashed downstairs to meet a very scared Nanny. Of course the door was locked and the key was still in my pocket. I yelled to Zeyla to get the key, and when we finally got into the drawing room, it looked as if a battle royale had taken place in there. Chains were upset, books flung about, and there in the middle of the chaos was that damn bone, looking as harmless and more like a biscuit than ever. The windows were still locked. It was after this episode that I decided that we were up against something, a poltergeist or some such thing. It had been known, but I had the misfortune to come across the results of one. Zeyla, who was very superstitious, found a local soothsayer who really said practically nothing, except that her fee was £1 and was of no help. Weeks passed without anything unusual happening, and then it started again. noises, banging, and always in the drawing room. Zeyla thought it was something to do with the bone and had the brilliant idea of moving the articles which had been flung about, except for the heavy chairs, downstairs to my sitting room. This we did, and of course the bone, table and all, came down as well. After a week or so, I got fed up with having my sitting room cluttered up and said that I would shift all the things back the following day. That night, however, something nearly did the job for me. As usual, there it was, the bone, on the floor, and as much furniture as could be tipped up was all over the place. This time I did connect this with the bone and told Zeyla that I was going to burn it. Unfortunately, this was met with such a storm of abuse from Zeyla that I was only too glad to leave the whole thing and go out for a drink to forget the whole incident. I told some of the members of my club what had happened, which caused much laughter and was not believed, except for a dear old chap called Colonel A.V. Coate, who had travelled a great deal. We had a long talk about it, and when I left the club that night, a little tight, I left with the avowed intentions of destroying that bone. When I arrived home, I found that the bone had been at it again. This was much earlier than usual, but the damage was more severe than usual. At this time, it was obvious that the table upon which the bone lay had been subjected to what one might say was severe pressure, for one of the legs was cracked. I just couldn't believe my eyes. During the course of the next day or so, I was pestered by a very charming reporter from the Express, who had a cock and bull story that he wanted me to look at. It was such utter tripe that I told him so, and in doing so, I opened up the gates of a dam with miles of water behind it. From then on, after the article had appeared in print, my life became hell on earth. How the reporters got a hold of the story, I do not know. But every paper seemed to want a statement of some description or another, but I was adamant. I had no comment to make. The young Express reporter asked if he could borrow the bone for a week and write up a daily article on it. I agreed to this, but nothing happened of any note whilst in the reporter's possession, and it was returned to me. A few more weeks elapsed, and still the papers molested me, but I had nothing to tell them. Until one evening at about 6 p.m, Nanny was scared out of her life. I suppose her nerves were frayed. We had a domestic scene, and I had gone to the club, and Zeyla was with her family and Giza. The story we heard from Nanny really worried me. Apparently the same thing had happened, noises, etc. But this time there was a terrific crash, followed by breaking glass, and she had been too frightened to go up to the drawing room to see what had happened. By this time I knew what to expect, and I was amazed to find the room untouched, except for the table and the bone. The table was smashed on its side, the glass canopy under the bone rested was in small pieces, and the bone itself was broken up into about 5 pieces. I thought, alright, you can have your story now, and arranged for a cameraman from the Scottish Daily Mail to take a picture of it. You should have seen the story the next day. I gave the bone to the reporter who had covered the story. It was returned to me, however, because apparently he became seriously ill. Same old trouble, or was it? My suggestion that there was a connection with this fact that the previous reporter had had a car accident was met with a great deal of ridicule. However, so we decided to forget the whole thing and prayed for peace. This was not to be, however, for on Boxing Day night we had a really cheerful crowd coming to dinner, which was scheduled for 7:30 for 8. Cocktails were to be served upstairs in the drawing room. Everyone was very happy and in good spirits, and as it was very cold outside, I had laid a big log fire in the large fireplace of the L-shaped room. Naturally, the subject of the bone came up, and to my disgust and dismay, Zeyla, who had got a friend of hers, a doctor, to mend the bone as far as possible, had placed it on a table opposite the door leading into this room. This, of course, made a good conversation interest, and it came out that the bone was a sacrum, or the bone at the base of the spine, joining the hip bones, apparently. Although not being a doctor, I would swear to this. Whilst we were talking and a fresh round of drinks were being served, the entire table, bone and all, went hurtling onto the wall opposite with a terrific thump. No one was standing near it, nor did anyone see it happen. It just happened. Chaos followed. The maid fainted, as did Zeyla's rather hysterical cousin, Gert. The party became a fiasco from then on. No one picked the bone up because I insisted that my room downstairs should be used. The story was spread, of course, and all sorts of things said about it. In the new year, the American papers got hold of the story, and they went to town with it. The whole story being magnified, and I found myself again the leading figure in a story which I had become to hate. Several spiritualistic meetings were held on subject, to which literally hundreds of people came, and I only wish now that I had had a good agent. I could have made a fortune out of it. Many unkind people thought that I had and that I was keeping the ball rolling to gather in money, but this was certainly not so. Amongst the thousands of letters that I received was one from a Dr. Carter of Tutankhamun tomb fame, in which he asked me to respect his confidence by not publishing its contents. But he assured me that things quite inexplicable like this could happen, indeed had happened and will go on happening. I am not Roman Catholic, although I had a very great respect for my uncle, who was Father Benedict at Fort Augustus Abbey. I suggested that he should come and exorcise whatever it was. He obtained permission and came to the scene. It was a solemn visit, carried out in Zeyla's absence. The bone, having been blessed, was then destroyed by me by burning, and I had made certain that it had gone for good. The papers were anxious to have this story, of course, but was a personal one and a very devout one. So they extracted no information from me at all, and they reported what they made up themselves. The strange thing is that after this, we had peace in the house, although Zeyla could not forgive me for destroying the bone, and it didn't help our already rocky marriage at all. I can give no answer as to what caused these mysterious happenings, but to my mind, there was some strange power released that we humans are apt to laugh at, but wish was so very real. Looking back on this experience, I still think that it is one of the most horrible experiences that I have been through, happening as it did both in the daytime and the night. My own interpretation of the matter is that through some uncanny power of religion, it was brought under destructive control. But if, and I emphasise the word if, it really did carry a curse, as many people thought, the curse certainly did not end when I destroyed that bone by fire. And from 1936 onwards, trouble, sometimes grave, seemed to be always around the corner. My daughter, Egidea, became ill with the result that she had had an operation on her eardrum. Then Zeyla had the same trouble in both ears. My troublesome kidney was still causing me great discomfort, and altogether was very difficult. So, that's the account from Sir Alexander himself. And like he said at the end there, he didn't think that burning that bone was the end of it. He did go on to live a pretty chaotic life, a miserable life, if I'm being honest. They both had numerous health-related issues, financial difficulties and struggles with depression. Sir Alexander and Zeyla did end up divorcing in 1939, and I think the two were just increasingly unhappy together, and they kind of just decided to call an end to it. They both did go on to remarry, but from what I read, I don't think any of these marriages were particularly love-filled or happy. Sir Alexander was divorced again in 1958, and he remarried for the last time in 1962. Now, I read that on his honeymoon, he was actually talking about his own death, and he did say that he foresaw it in the next 6 months. He did go on to pass away within a year of that marriage in 1962. So reading through all of this, I think the incident seems pretty genuine. Whether there are rational explanations for everything that was happening within the home, or even if the pair had come up with this story as a means to gain like media attention or money, I just don't see it. Sir Alexander didn't seem very happy or excited by the thought of his wife taking this bone in the first place. He seemed pretty pissed off, and rightly so. I think it should have been left where it was or returned from where it was taken, and I think that the act of burning it in itself is a wee bit disrespectful, never mind stealing it in the first place. But as a whole, I feel like Sir Alexander wasn't particularly fond of the story, and he seems to have had a pretty miserable life afterwards, which he obviously attributes to this curse. So I think that it could have been genuine on his part. Again, that's not to say that there was no foul play here, and his wife at the time, respectfully, could have maybe played a part in this fantastical story of a cursed bone and all that. I did think it was pretty strange that she would just take it out when there were parties in the house or people over for social gatherings and just place it in the centre of the table. Like, I get it, it's obviously a conversation piece, and like the upper class, especially like in that time, they kind of used to do things like that all the time. Like, they would just have like things on display that you probably wouldn't find in people's houses nowadays. and everyone would kind of just be standing staring at it out of some morbid curiosity. But Zeyla seemed to me to have a really weird obsession with it. The fact that it was just in a box that she would put on the nightstand as well, like a snow globe that she had grabbed at the pyramids, I just think it's really, really weird. So she could have been involved. Maybe she was feeling that fire a wee bit. No idea. But I would say that on Sir Alexander's part, I think it was pretty genuine. I think as well the discovery of the tomb of Tutankhamun and the curse that is usually associated with that probably fueled a lot of the media and the stories that were going around about this. I think there's just that time period specifically with, like I say, the discovery of Tutankhamun, the tomb of Tutankhamun, and the curse that kind of was placed on all of the people that were involved in that. Whether that's true or not, who knows? We'll probably talk about it at some point. And then you have like the release of movies like The Curse of the Mummy, that kind of thing. So yeah, it is a morbid curiosity for people. So that's probably fueled a lot of it as well. But I think the moral of the story, and most of the other ones we've talked about as well, is stop taking things from sacred spaces that you have no right to. It's always struck me as very strange that we just take things from other countries and cultures and we just put them on display in front of millions of people to come and see, like, i.e. like sarcophagus, bones, entire bodies, items that were used in rituals, that kind of thing. I totally understand the historical significance of these pieces, but I just think it's super weird. On the flip side of that, I do tend to see the beauty in things that some other people may find morbid or unsettling. I've always been that way, so I do kind of understand the curiosity, but I just don't take things. Even if you don't believe in curses, it's just disrespectful, so stop doing it. And if you do it and something bad happens, or you think that something weird is going on, just take it back to where you got it from, put it back, just say some nice positive words and just leave it. Don't touch it. So yes, stop. But yes, please get in touch and let me know if you think this ancient Egyptian sacrum was cursed, or if you think it's all a massive coincidence. Let me know. Love hearing what you folks think about all this stuff. But yes, that is all I have for you today, my lovelies. As always, I hope you enjoyed, and I will see you in the next one. Stay weird, stay scared. Bye, folks.